Welcome to the Elizabeth Cunningham Show, courageously expanding love with me, Elizabeth Cunningham. Has the way that love has arisen in you seemed out of place or even taboo? My mission is to expand the conversation of love in the world. Is it possible to have deep, loving, healthy relationships? Have you ever been curious about having more than one relationship or partner at a time? Get ready to transform in love, be courageous, and set yourself free. In this show, we talk about relationships, sex, love, and the ways we wish we could be, but never thought were possible. I shed light on things that are not always talked about with conversations about expanding love. The Elizabeth Cunningham Show starts now. Hey, welcome to the Elizabeth Cunningham Show, courageously expanding in love. And today we are talking about sacred sexual healing. But before we get into that and introduce our absolutely fabulous guest, just a reminder that the Elizabeth Cunningham Show is live every Tuesday at 3 p.m. on the Transformation Network Facebook page and is then aired on YouTube and podcast by Thursday every single week. All links that you need for that are in the show notes. So on today's episode, we'll be talking with iLaria Bordignon about sacred sexual healing. iLaria is an intuitive empathic healer and intimacy therapist, trauma hypnotherapist, and Reiki Sound Healer of women's sacred Yoni And Ani Massage healer, and Tantric energy goddess. That is absolutely true. Her healing journey began very young at 9 years old when she started to see different colored auras around people. This amazing revelation was experienced while transcending a challenging childhood of emotional and sexual trauma and gender identity confusion, all accumulating in a near-death experience in her early 20s. This all motivated an insatiable desire to understand ancient and modern therapies encompassing emotional, psychological, and energetic perspectives. iLaria, thank you so much for being here today.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored.
Oh my gosh. Yes, the feeling is absolutely mutual. So as I always do on this show, I really want to lay the groundwork for what are we talking about here. And so sacred sexual healing. What does that mean to you?
Well, when we think about the pagan rituals that used to be, time past, sexuality was embraced as a healthy expression of spirituality. And it's only with the advent of modern Christianity, which all started at the Council of Nicaea back in ancient Rome with Emperor Constantine, who's really trying to just deal with these religious warring factions. And he basically said, all right, everybody come together. We'll have this big ass meeting and we're going to sort all this stuff out. And essentially they created Christianity at that meeting. And apparently a lot of the puritanical types were like, no, we don't want to have anything sexual. We want to get rid of these pagan things. So it was all lost. And where we are today is quite different, you know, where we're in a position where many religions, at least in the Western Hemisphere, tell us that abstaining from sexuality brings you closer to God. And I'm like, how's that working out? You know, when we hear all these stories in the news, I mean, come on. And when we say to ourselves, well, why did they get rid of it in the first place? Our soul inhabits our body. Our body is a temple. Our body has functions and needs. And why are we disconnecting those functions? Why are we disconnecting those needs? Why are we in what I like to call denialism of our true selves, you know? And spiritual sexuality, tantric sexuality is the re-embracement of saying, yes, we can have our sexual bodies, we can have our physical bodies, and we can be spiritual as well.
I think that that's beautiful. And I really love the, you know, what I want to say is the recommitment of not denying that, yeah, we do have needs. And so talk to me a little bit more. You said denialism.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to me a little bit more about what is this sexual and emotional denialism that you're talking about?
Well, when we have our modern society, I'm talking about the last, I'd say 7,500 years of American society. This doesn't happen in other societies. When you look at India, places like that, they embrace a lot of their sexuality. But here in the Western Hemisphere, we're conditioned not only by religions, but also by governments to conform, to be, to fit in almost a production line of society and just be this, the husband, the wife, the cat, the canary, the 3 children, it's the white picket fence. And we're told that that is what we're supposed to be. In other words, we're denying our true selves. I work with so many women who are in marriages that have their sacral chakra and their sexuality pretty much shut down. They don't even experience orgasm in their marriage with their husbands, who they are supposed to be the ultimate partner, the one that they are to be with for the rest of their life. It almost sounds like a prison sentence of as we say, denialism. I am denying myself. I'm denying what I want. I'm denying what I truly love. I'm denying what I truly feel. And in essence, I'm giving that a compromise to kind of for materialistic gains, i.e. the marriage, the home, and so forth from a woman's perspective. The men don't seem to have a problem with this. Men's denialism is different than a woman's denialism. Men's denialism is more denying their emotional connection with their partners. For them, sex is sometimes can be just a release of the physical need to release, but there's not the element of true spiritual intimacy involved in the act of sex. And that can be because essentially they're disconnected from their sacral and root chakras and disconnected from Mother Earth energy, where a lot of women naturally are because we have the divine Yoni. So this is why women tend to be unhappy in the marriage, and the man is like, oh, I'm okay. I'm all right,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I see what you mean by denialism looks different for men and women, especially inside of the context that you created, right? Where and that's what I see often with like what you said really resonates with me, because that's often what I see with my clients as well. Their remarks where they're stuck, their experience very much reflects what you just shared. And where women are like, I feel like I can't be myself. Like I can't, and men say that too. Men are like, I can't be myself, but it's in a very different way where women can't be sexually expressed and men can't be emotionally expressed. And I want to, kind of point to this idea of gender, because this is something that's very unique in our current conversation in the world, where we are stepping away from this idea of binary gender. And you have a really unique perspective on that as someone who is transgender. And so can you talk a little bit more about you having that unique perspective and really like what that allows for you inside of how you help people heal?
Well, in a nutshell, I know what women want to feel, and I know what men want to see. So, but let's expand upon that. So, in my psychological studies of not just psyche, but also human anatomy, the fundamental physical differences between the female mind and the male mind are essentially focused on this thing called the hippocampus. Now, the male hippocampus, unfortunately, is really, really, really tiny. And it's no fault of man that is, I mean, maybe God could be blamed for this one, I don't know. But men can either think or feel. But they can't really squeeze both through that narrow hippocampus, which is the processing center of the brain. They can't do both at once. Women, on the other hand, have a very wide hippocampus. There, I get it on the shot. And that's why we can think and feel at the same time. Now, there are benefits and pros and cons to both. The men can be very singularly minded and very determined. But it's a restriction to add the emotional construct to the masculine psyche when performing intellectual tasks. And that is also true in the bedroom. It's very hard for a man to express emotions, to temper and prolong the act of sexuality, because they can't process it in that time. Their mind is purely focused on the sexuality of the moment. And this is an inherent restriction in the act of coitus. Whereas the women, we can do this, and we're yearning for this emotional connection because it's part of the psyche, it's part of the sexual expression for us. And that also opens up the doors to spiritualism, because spiritualism, in essence, is a form of emotion. You feel love when you're connected with your higher power. When you're properly connected, it is a loving feeling. Mm. So when we have this, when clients approach me, there are ways in which men can catch up with women and embrace the prolonged act of sexual pleasure. And unfortunately, though, they have been taught to resist that journey, because connecting with their feminine side, connecting with their emotional side, connecting with Mother Earth, their sacral chakra and their root chakra, can be considered being effeminate. And many men have said, oh, no, wait a minute. I have been taught and told to deny my emotions, to shut them down, to be the strong, powerful, masculine archetype, Iron John, and so forth, if you've ever read that book. And so they're literally shutting down their chakras, they're shutting down their heart, they're shutting down their root chakra, they're shutting down their sacral chakra, they're even shutting down the solar plexus, their inner child, because when they were children, they had no problem crying. They would bawl their eyes out if they fell over. But somewhere along the way, they got the memo that said, do not express your emotions. Shut them down. Don't feel anything. Be the strong man and handle it. And you kind of have to go, well, here we are with denialism again.
Right.
And how is that working out? So the solution is really a lot of reprogramming, for men can express their emotions, and they can do it with a narrow hippocampus. They just need to alternate intellect and emotion and get them vibrating together, and then that way it works. And in my teachings with men, I do help them with that through their significant others. The connections are available, but they have to be willing to push past their fears and saying, well, it's okay to understand and express my emotions if I can do it in a healthy way. And to give you a classic example, I used to be an Italian man. I lived in Italy. I was living in Rome. And Italian men, and I was handsome too, by the way.
Sure you were. I have no doubt.
But yes, I used to wear the Armani suits. I used to be a pilot. I've done all this amazing man stuff that I totally embrace, because I embrace both genders, which is why I can see this. I balance them out. So Italian men have learned and understand that showing healthy emotions is a sign of strength, because it enables them to understand and nurture their women in a way that can really endear the femininity to you. And it's so much better in the relationship. Whereas American men, I hate to say it, have been taught the exact opposite, that the healthy expression of emotions is a sign of weakness.
Right.
How's that working out for you? Again,
Yeah. And, I grew up in America as a, I still identify as a female. So I identify as, cisgender female. But growing up around the men in my family, growing up with, boys, and how, the boys around me were raised, that's exactly what I saw. And I took that on as well, as, because I grew up around a lot of boys. And so I took on that showing emotions is a sign of weakness. I remember the moment when I was 5 years old, when a male relative told a male cousin of mine to suck it up, basically stop crying. And I took that on in that moment,
Wow.
that I was just like, yeah, you can't feel emotions. And we do see that. And so one of the things that you talked about was that there's a lot to uncover, that there's a lot to unpack. Like you said, there's the conditioning that we have as, growing up in whatever culture that we did. And I think that, we can talk about you can talk about American culture, Italian culture, UK, India, all different places. We all have our own pros and cons in the culture that we grew up in.
Yes.
But being able to look at what was the impact of the culture that you grew up in? What do you need to unpack from that in order to have this healthy relationship? And so, I want to know a little bit more about the, you talked about kind of the origins of sacred sexual healing. You talked about, what you see needs to be healed in people. And so how do you help people? What do you use? What types of modalities do you use in this sacred sexual healing to help people?
Well, firstly, let's focus on women, since that is my primary focus.
Okay.
So with women that have had disassociated sexual experiences, and especially with men, it's not so prevalent in the feminine community, the lesbian community, or the gender flexible community. But when they've allowed the masculine to penetrate into the sacred yoni, and to penetrate with an energy of that disassociation, of a lack of intimacy, and a purely physical, functional release of sexuality, and the denialism and the pent-up pain that many men feel, trapping their emotions, containing what they should say with their throat chakras, not saying anything, shutting it all down, keeping it bottled up in this toxic blend of all the things that all the regrets, all the shame, all the guilt bottled up. And then it's released in the act of sexuality, and then that comes into the yoni, and that energy is in there. The yoni, like the heart, like the gut, and many other of the chakras, has neurons, it has memory cells. Why do we, when we feel heartache, why do we feel the pain in our heart? Why don't we feel it in our left foot?
No, that's a valid question though. Yeah.
Right.
You don't really think about that. You're like, no, it just seems like normal to feel it there. But yeah, like why do we feel it there?
Why do we feel it there? It's because the heart is packed full of neurons, brain cells. And so when we're intellectually feeling our love emotion and our pain or regret, and we feel the heartache, instantly the brain says, okay, we need to feel this in the neurons in the heart, because this is where our emotional center is. This is where our heart chakra is. So that's why we feel the pain there. But interestingly enough, we can feel pain in the gut, and there's another huge cluster in the yoni. But interestingly enough, we don't feel the pain down there as much as we feel it in our heart. So then we ask the question, well, why aren't we feeling the pain in the yoni? Well, we are. We are, but what we've done is the pain is so intense, the toxicity is so intense that it's like if you get knocked on the head, and if you have a bad car accident, you pass out.
Right.
The spike is so great with the pain that it's disconnected. And that's when we get disconnected from that chakra.
Mm-hmm.
And once we're disconnected, we no longer feel that chakra. We no longer feel the yoni chakra. And so what starts to happen is that we ignore the toxicity that's in there because we're not getting the communication, and it just builds up. It builds up in illnesses like polycystic ovary disease. It builds up with irregular periods. It accumulates in an early menopause. It can accumulate in things like breast cancer and things like that, because the toxicity is still flowing. It's just that we're not getting the message because we've disconnected from the chakra.
And is that what you were talking about with the disassociation earlier? Exactly.
So it's the worst disease in human society, in modern Western human society that we have right now. This denialism, this disassociation is killing us and destroying our intimacy, our ability for us to intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm working with clients, and I've done my sound bath concerts, and this is God's honest truth, I'm not even doing much other than a little Reiki energy channeling and a little Reiki energy with my clients in a sound bath concert. And women have come up to me after I've played my concert, and they have literally said, "iLaria, could I speak to you in confidence?" And I'm like, "Yes." And they say, and they're all kind of flushed and they're all red and they're a little embarrassed. And I'm like, "Yes, please tell me." And they're like, "Did you do something during the sound bath?" And I'm like, no, this is just my channeling of energy. It's not from me. It's from Divine Spirit and Mother Earth. And they turn around and say, "I got wet. I'm sexually aroused." And I'm like, oh, thank God. And I was like, I thought there was something serious going on. I said, "No, what's happened is we've opened up the connection to your chakras, and your true sexuality is now starting to express itself. Your feminine empowerment is starting to express yourself, and your chakra opened and your yoni released." Mm-hmm. And they're like, "Oh, I didn't know." And I said, "Yes, please come to me for a one-on-one healing. We'll work out why the blockage is there. We'll release that toxicity from that chakra, and we'll start to get you more empowered with your feminine goddess energy, because you've shut it down because of the masculine toxicity and denialism. This patriarchal society that we're in has done so much damage to women. I mean, look at Roe versus Wade, just reversed. Mm-hmm. They are so entrenched, the men are so entrenched in denialism that it's toxifying our own bodies as the feminine. So in the healing practices, we release together the blockages in the inner child, in the heart, and in the sacred yoni, and we connect with Mother Earth. We allow Mother Earth energy to flow in, and we become the empowered goddess that we should be. And then we exude that empowerment, which is also spiritual in nature, from the crown chakra, and seeing people's truth with our third eye chakra, and then speaking that truth into our relationships. And trust me, ladies, once you become the empowered goddess, the men in your life or the lovers in your life will just worship the ground you stand on, especially the men. They'll be like, oh my gosh, what have you done? You are exuding sexuality. You're exuding your empowerment. You look so amazing. Everyone's going to look at you differently, going, what is it about you? What have you done? You haven't done anything to your physical appearance. You're just glowing with that divine feminine sensuality and tantric energy and empowerment and confidence that is not cowering to the masculine toxicity. And instead, what you can do is you can embrace the masculine and say, hey, let's connect with your inner child. And so for the men out here that are listening, the first step in the healing process is to connect with your solar plexus, your inner child, because at one time you did express your emotions. And that is the key, that is the beginning of the journey to reconnecting with your emotions and letting them out. And trust me, it is not a weak thing. Women will love you for it once you start that journey. But that's kind of what I do with women. So, but we can talk about men too if you like.
Well, we are going to take a quick break here. But I would love to talk about, when we get back, I would love to talk a little bit more. There were some things that you went over that I think that if you're not used to talking about like energy or like energy healing, that might be like, what are you actually talking about? And also, one of the things that you said was that this is like the biggest thing that's hurting ourselves, hurting our society right now. And that's a really big claim. And so I want to talk a little bit more about that as well. So we're going to dive even deeper when we get back from our break. All right, welcome back to the Elizabeth Cunningham Show, Courageously Expanding in Love. And we are talking today to iLaria Bordignon about sacred sexual healing. And we have been really diving deep into this topic of sacred sexual healing. Thank you so much for everything that you have shared so far.
Of course.
And yes, and one of the things that we were talking about before break is I want to talk a little bit more about like your chakras, because you've brought up your chakras a lot, and I know that not everyone is familiar with your chakra system, so maybe just explain a little bit about what that is.
Absolutely, yeah, thank you. The chakras, wow. Well, they go back to ancient times in a nutshell. They're energy centers within the body. And like we said earlier, they're primarily the most important ones are heart, solar plexus, and sacral. But they're all important. So we have 7 of them. And when we align all 7 of these things called chakras, we align into enlightenment. So let's look at what they represent. And then you'll see how once you align them, you become very balanced with everything and everyone around you. And also within yourself. So if we start at the very top, which is the crown chakra, and this is an opening on the top of the head. This allows connection with spirit and soul. So we are fundamentally inhabitants of our body. Our soul inhabits the body very much like a rider rides a motorcycle. We guide our body. I mean, when we think about it, what is the soul? It's an entity that programmed our brain. Our brain just didn't suddenly program itself. when we were in the fetus, in the womb, suddenly, after about 6 to 8 weeks, we got this magical thing that happened. We got a palm print and the fundamental structure of our brain. It was like a download. Boom, happens literally overnight. So where did that programming come from? The fundamental programming of your personality. So when we open our crown chakra, we connect with our fundamental programming and its source, which is spirit, the universe, divine goddess. When we look at cultures like India, they're always wearing a bindi in the middle of their forehead. Why? Because it's a celebration of another chakra, which is called the third eye. Now, in our society, they put fluoride in the water. They put fluoride in the toothpaste. Supposedly it's to help our teeth get strong. Great. Well, actually it does that pretty well, but it also has a side effect. It calcifies not just the teeth, but an area in the brain called the pineal gland.
Mm.
And this area is directly connected to our spiritual center. It is activated at the moment where we transcend to the afterlife, if you believe in that sort of thing. And it releases this chemical called DMT. And that chemical releases into the brain, so you start to see and opens your third eye chakra, and you can see your divine soul energy, which is a beautiful glowing orb of truth and light. But because we're drinking all this fluoride, it's all shut down. But in cultures where they don't have fluoride in the water, like India, there's a temple on every street corner. And everyone's celebrating the fact that they can see this beautiful spiritual light in themselves and in others. And the benefit is it gives you a wonderful clarity about a person because you have an extra eye to see them with. You get an extra eye to feel them with. You get to see their truth. So this chakra is very important. The next one is also the throat chakra, to speak that truth with. The next chakra is the heart chakra, to feel that truth with. And then we have the gut, which is the solar plexus. And this is where our belly button connected to us. And everyone says, oh, I have a gut instinct about that. Well, if you've got a lot of childhood trauma, and childhood trauma is contained within the gut, and it's where our belly button is. And that's where we were connected in the womb as a little fetus. This is our child center. So if you've got a gut feeling about someone or something, and you've experienced some trauma in your childhood, you can't trust that gut because it's a trigger reaction. And you're like, why am I feeling like this around this person? I feel awful around this person. It could be because of the chakra not right. So this ties in with psychology. This ties in with spiritualism. This ties in with emotional truth. This ties in with so much psychology. And so chakras and psychology are intimately connected. The sacred yoni, the solar plexus, which is right here, which is the creative center of the female. Women are the creators of life. Men are the facilitators of life. Equally as important, but women do a lot more. I mean, we carry the baby for 9 moons, and then we raise it, we feed it, and we produce the milk. We're doing all this stuff. We are creating that life. Men, they could just do it and leave. They're done. They don't have to do any of that work, you know, if they so choose. And then, of course, the last chakra is the root chakra. And this one connects us to Mother Earth energy. Now, Mother Earth energy is basically our home. Our planet is our home. As much as our living room, like my office here, which we're in, is my home, our planet is our home. Mm-hmm. And she produces oxygen for us, which we then breathe in. And when we breathe out, we give her the gift of life with our CO2, and we create a symbiotic, intimate connection with our planet. She gives us the gift of life that we breathe in, and we give her the gift of life that we breathe out. And so respecting and honoring our home is what a lot of people do. They have a nice tidy house. They look after their home. They want that nice mansion or that nice white picket fence, and you honor and cherish your home. But why don't we honor and cherish our extended home, which is our planet?
Mm.
It's because women are the home, traditionally women are the homemakers. Why? Because they're connected to their root chakra, to Mother Earth energy, which is a feminine energy, which many men seem to think makes them effeminate, which they must deny. Which is why the leaders on our planet are not connected to their root chakra and therefore are not respecting our environment. Because they're not respecting the divine femininity of the Mother Nature, Mother Earth. I don't call it Father Nature, they call it Mother Nature. It's like, duh, you got to embrace that energy, guys, So when you align all of these chakras, you have the wisdom of the spiritual wisdom coming in. You can speak your truth. You can understand people by feeling them. You can see them clearly. You can feel them clearly. And you can respect and honor your world better. That's what chakras and opening and aligning them can do for you.
Thank you so much for that really incredible explanation. And I personally see, like, when you said, everything is aligned and everything kind of moves and works together. And if you have it all aligned, then you can see how everything, not just yourself, but how we all move and work together. And you can start to see what's not aligned with that. And, personally, like, I'm like, okay, I see what you're talking about with denialism, right? Because when we deny that alignment, when we deny that connection, then things get off balance. We're not in tune. We see all of this toxicity that we're seeing. And then it leads to, as you said, you think that this is the biggest issue that we're facing right now. And I do want to go on break really quick, and we'll get back. And I just want to complete that thought around the importance of talking about this and the importance of healing these things. And then I want you to tell people how they can find you.
Okay.
All right, perfect. We'll go on break real quick. All right, welcome back to the Elizabeth Cunningham Show, courageously expanding in love. And I think that this topic is an amazing example of courageously expanding in love, because it goes against what most of us have been taught our entire life about being aligned, being in tune, instead of denying or repressing how we feel, and whether that be emotionally or sexually. So iLaria, thank you so much for leading us through this conversation. And before we wrap up, man, I wish we could talk about this for another hour. But before we wrap up, share a little more about the what you do inside of Tantra, how you help people release, how you do help people heal from this.
Indeed, Tantra is misconstrued. Everyone thinks Tantric is just sex. No, it is everything that we've been talking about. It is the complete, total spiritual, emotional connection to both spirit, earth, and yourself. It is a celebration of that energy of being empowered and being complete. And so when we're doing healings, the purging, especially for women, can be achieved through orgasm. And when you connect with all of the chakras and you get them aligned, and then the orgasm becomes something new and different for you. It becomes an expression of all of the chakras, not just the sexual chakra, not just the sacral, but all of them. And what happens is the orgasm gets so much more pure, so much more pleasurable, lasts for so much longer. I mean, I've had orgasms that have lasted for almost a day. And as they increase in intensity, you almost have an out-of-body experience of exaltation of bliss that you've never experienced before. So when you purge these toxins away through chakra alignment and healing, you can achieve a much higher state of celebration, of sexual bliss. And it's not just a sexual expression, it is everything. And this feeling travels through you in every walk of your life. And this is what one can achieve, both men and women. And if we did that, we'd be so much happier. But yes, that's essentially the healing that I practice here in my temple.
I mean, like, and who doesn't want, I know that Tantra is not just about sex, but also like, who doesn't want amazing orgasms, you know? And I have a friend of mine who's also a relationship coach, and he's like, you know what, whatever gets people through the door. If what gets you through the door is that you just want to have amazing orgasms, fantastic. But guess what you're going to get in the process? Absolute transformation of yourself, healing, releasing of, you know, toxins, uncovering all of those old stories, letting them go, all of it. But if what gets you in the door is, I want to have amazing orgasms, fantastic. Sign up, right?
Why not?
So, iLaria, like I said, we could talk about this forever, but I want to start to close down the show. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and then I'm going to have you share how people can find you. Yes. So my first question is, what does love mean to you?
Oh, if I could answer that in a couple of words, I would say truth. Absolute, pure truth, with no fear, no withholding, complete openness to reveal your intimacy to another courageously, humbly, and beautifully.
I love that answer. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If people get nothing else, what do you hope that they got out of this episode?
The desire to at least be open to the possibilities of enriching your life in a way that you haven't thought of before, and attempting to say, okay, let's explore these things called chakras. Let's release and connect, truly find intimacy with partners and with our planet, so that we can live much better and express that to everyone that you can meet.
Beautiful. And what's one action that people could take out of listening today?
Don't be afraid to express your emotions. Yeah, just flow with them. And if you need to cry, cry. And if you need to laugh, laugh. But don't hold back anymore.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. I'm going to take that on. What are you promoting, and how can people find you?
The best place to find me is on my Instagram, which is my name, iLaria, which is Hillary in Italian, which means laughter and joy. It's ILARIA, and then B, and then my surname, BORDIGNON. It's French Austrian kind of a name, but it's all good. It's proper Veneto. I'm a Venetian. But yeah, Instagram, iLaria B. Bordignon. I have a few websites, but they're in development. Who has time? You know, I'm too busy healing or working with people.
It is the struggle of being a healer and an entrepreneur. It's just like, but I'm healing people, so I can't work on my business, but I need to work on my business so that I can heal more people.
So true.
No, absolutely. And all of those, your links will be in the show notes. So anybody who wants to reach out to iLaria, who wants to know more about how she can help you, if you felt into this episode, if you feel, you know, that she is the person for you, please reach out to her. She is absolutely an incredible healer, as I hope that you got today. iLaria, thank you so much for being on the show. And everyone who's listening. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, turn on the notification. Don't miss anything. Don't miss anything inside of talking about love, sex, relationships. You know, in my humble opinion, this is really the most important thing that we could talk about. We're live every Tuesday at 3 p.m. on the Transformation Network Facebook page, and we air every Thursday on YouTube and podcast. All links are in the show notes. Until next time, my friends, keep loving. You have been listening to the Elizabeth Cunningham Show, courageously expanding love with me, Elizabeth Cunningham. Tune in live every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on transformationtalkradio.com, where we shed light on relationships, sex, love, and the ways we wish we could be, but never thought were possible. Learn to love yourself and create the relationships you want. Connect with me at elizabethannCunningham.com. That's elizabethannCunningham.com.